Maria Rodriguez never planned to be a hero. She never even planned to join the military. Growing up in San Antonio's west side, where gunshots punctuated summer nights and sirens sang lullabies, she had different dreams: nursing school, maybe a quiet life helping people without the weight of a rifle on her back. But life has a way of rewriting plans, especially when you're the daughter of a man haunted by ghosts from a jungle war fought before you were born. Her father, Carlos Rodriguez, had been a Marine Corpsman in Vietnam. He never talked about it, not really. But Maria learned to read the signs. The way his hands trembled every 4th of July when fireworks exploded overhead. How he'd wake up screaming on humid nights, calling names she'd never heard. The Purple Heart and Navy Cross gathering dust in a shoebox under his bed, medals he refused to display. And the drinking, God, the drinking, that started every evening at 6 o'clock sharp, like he was trying to drown something that refused to die. She was 17 when everything changed. It was a sweltering July evening and her father had been drinking heavier than usual. Maria found him in the garage, weeping silently, holding a faded photograph of young men in mud-stained uniforms. "Dad," she'd whispered, afraid to startle him. He looked up with eyes so broken she felt her heart crack. "I left them," he said, his voice raw. "Morrison, Jenkins, 3 others. They told me to fall back, said they were already gone. But I heard Morrison calling for me. I heard him, Mija, and I left him." That night, as her father finally fell asleep, Maria sat beside him holding his calloused hand. He'd squeezed her fingers and whispered words that would echo in her mind for the next 11 years. "Promise me something, Mija. Promise me you'll never leave anyone behind. Not ever. That weight, it'll kill you slower than any bullet." 2 years later, Maria enlisted. Her mother cried. Her brothers called her crazy. But her father looked at her with something she'd never seen before. Pride mixed with terror. He knew what she was walking into, and he knew why she had to go. Navy Corpsman, a school was brutal. The instructors pushed them relentlessly, drilling emergency medicine until their hands could work trauma wounds in their sleep. Maria absorbed everything like a sponge: tourniquets, chest seals, airways, battlefield triage. She graduated top of her class and requested immediate deployment with a Marine infantry unit. Some classmates thought she had a death wish. Maybe she did. Or maybe she just needed to understand what her father had lived through, to walk the path he'd walked and prove that leaving no one behind wasn't just a motto, it was a choice. Afghanistan hit her like a physical force. The heat, the dust, the constant alertness that kept your nerves singing even in sleep. Forward Operating Base Dalaram in Helmand Province became home, if you could call a collection of plywood buildings and sandbag walls home. Her unit, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, welcomed her with skepticism. A female corpsman attached to an infantry unit was still rare in 2011, and some of the Marines made no secret of their doubts. Staff Sergeant Mike Donovan was the worst. "No offense, Doc, but when I'm bleeding out, I need someone who can drag my 200-pound ass out of the fire." Maria had looked at him evenly and said, "Then let's hope you never find out what I can do, Staff Sergeant." 2 weeks later, an IED shredded Donovan's leg during a patrol. Maria ran 40 yards under sporadic fire, applied a tourniquet that saved his life, and helped carry him to the medevac bird. After that, Donovan called her Doc with reverence, and the unit's attitude shifted overnight. She'd been in country for 14 months now. 14 months of midnight emergencies, of holding young men's hands while they cried for their mothers, of washing blood from her uniform so often the fabric had permanent rust-colored stains. She'd saved 17 lives by her count and lost 4. Those 4 haunted her. PFC Anderson, who'd bled out before she could reach him. Corporal Hughes, whose head wound was catastrophic before the explosion's echo faded. Lance Corporal Perez and Private First Class Young, caught in an ambush she'd been powerless to stop. She understood her father now, understood the weight he carried, the names that echoed in the dark. But she also understood something he hadn't, that you couldn't save everyone, but you could damn well try. You could run into fire when everyone else said it was impossible. You could refuse to accept that anyone was already gone until you'd put your own hands on them and confirmed it yourself. Now at 28 years old, Maria Rodriguez was one of the most experienced corpsmen in the battalion. Her Marines trusted her absolutely. When someone shouted "Corpsman," she moved, no hesitation, no fear, or rather, fear that she'd learned to harness and use like fuel. She'd extended her deployment twice, unable to leave while her Marines were still in harm's way. Tomorrow was supposed to be another routine patrol through a village near their fob. Intelligence said Taliban activity had decreased in the area. They'd walked the same route a dozen times. Maria had learned that routine was a lie the military told itself, that every patrol could be the one where everything went wrong. She'd learned to trust her instincts, to read the weight of silence and the taste of danger in the air. As she cleaned her medical supplies that evening, preparing her pack with the methodical care that meant the difference between life and death, she thought about her father. He was doing better now, 3 years sober, attending therapy, finally making peace with his ghosts. She called him every week when satellite coverage allowed. Last time he'd said something that stuck with her. "I'm proud of you, Mija. You're doing what I couldn't. You're keeping that promise." Maria didn't feel heroic. She felt tired, scared, and increasingly aware that her luck would eventually run out. But she also felt certain of one thing: if tomorrow brought chaos and blood and impossible choices, she would run toward the gunfire. She would put her hands on her Marines and refuse to let them go. She would honor the promise made to a broken father in a Texas garage, no matter the cost. She had no idea that tomorrow would test that promise in ways she couldn't imagine. That she'd face a choice between orders and honor, between safety and sacrifice. That 30 yards of open ground would become the longest distance she'd ever traveled, and that a young Marine named Jimmy Chen would owe his daughter's future to a decision Maria would make in a heartbeat. The sun set over Helmand Province, painting the mountains in shades of blood orange and purple. Maria lay in her rack, running through emergency procedures in her mind, her father's words a quiet mantra: never leave anyone behind. Tomorrow she would prove it. The Afghan sun rose like an angry eye over the mountains, turning the sky from deep purple to blazing orange in minutes. Maria Rodriguez had been awake for an hour already, double-checking her medical pack with the obsessive attention to detail that kept Marines alive. Tourniquets, 6 of them, positioned for quick access. Chest seals, 4 packages. Pressure bandages, airways, IV kits, morphine, combat gauze impregnated with clotting agents. Every item had its place, memorized so thoroughly she could find anything blindfolded with hands covered in blood. "Doc, you worry too much," said Lance Corporal Jimmy Chen, grinning as he walked past her toward the staging area. At 21, Chen still had the enthusiasm of someone who believed he was invincible. His second deployment hadn't beaten that out of him yet, and Maria both admired and feared it. Confidence kept you sharp. Overconfidence got you killed. "And you don't worry enough," Maria shot back, but she smiled. Chen had that effect on people. His optimism was infectious even in this God-forsaken desert. He was one of those Marines everyone liked, the guy who remembered birthdays, who shared his care packages, who could make even the grumpiest sergeant crack a smile. "Can't worry, Doc, got too much to live for." Chen pulled out his phone, showing her the lock screen for the 100th time, a photo of his wife Jessica holding their 3-month-old daughter Emma. The baby had been born 2 weeks after Chen deployed. He'd missed those crucial first weeks, but Jessica sent him photos and videos constantly. She smiled yesterday, like a real smile, not just gas. Maria looked at the photo, Emma's tiny face, those enormous dark eyes, the little fist curled near her chin. Something tightened in her chest. "She's beautiful, Chen. Looks like her mom." "Thank God for that," Chen laughed. "Kid doesn't need this ugly mug." He tucked his phone away carefully, then pulled the ultrasound photo from his helmet, the one he kept tucked in there for luck. Maria had told him a dozen times that putting paper in his helmet was stupid, but Chen was superstitious. "This one's for Emma, getting home to her." Lieutenant Marcus Morrison called the patrol to formation. 8 Marines plus Maria, a small team for what intelligence assured them was a low-threat area. They'd be walking through a village they'd visited multiple times, checking on relations with the local elders, showing presence. Standard stuff. The kind of patrol that should be boring. Should be. Maria's instincts were screaming something different. "Listen up," Morrison addressed them, his southern drawl thick in the morning air. At 32, he was one of the older officers, a career Marine who'd done 3 tours in Iraq before Afghanistan. "Intel says the area's quiet. Taliban's been pushed out by local militia, but I don't trust intel and neither should you. Eyes open, spacing maintained. Chen, you're on point with Rodriguez right behind. Davis, Lopez, rear security. We move slow, we move smart." They moved out at 700 hours. The temperature was already climbing toward what would be a scorching day. Maria felt the weight of her gear, rifle, medical pack, plates in her vest, ammunition, water. Probably 80 pounds total. She'd stopped noticing years ago, but newcomers always struggled with it. Your body adapted or you didn't make it. The village appeared on the horizon after a 30-minute walk, a collection of mud brick compounds surrounded by poppy fields that stretched like pink and white oceans, beautiful and deadly. Those fields financed the Taliban, funded the IEDs that had claimed so many American lives. Maria had learned to hate the sight of poppies. Chen moved confidently ahead, his rifle sweeping potential threats. Behind him, Maria maintained 8 yards of spacing, scanning rooftops and alleyways. The village seemed normal, too normal. Where were the children who usually ran out to see the Americans? Where were the women who'd peek from doorways? The streets felt empty, abandoned. "Sir," Maria spoke into her radio, "something's wrong, it's too quiet." "I see it, Doc," Morrison responded. "Everyone stay sharp. Chen, slow it down." They entered the village marketplace, a central square with wooden stalls selling vegetables, cheap Chinese electronics, and bootleg DVDs. Usually it bustled with activity. Today it was deserted except for one old man sitting by a fruit stand, studiously ignoring their presence. Maria's hand tightened on her rifle grip. Every instinct honed through 14 months of combat was screaming, "Get out." "Sir, we need to," she started to say. Chen's boot came down on the pressure plate. The world exploded. The IED erupted with a sound beyond sound, a physical force that slammed into Maria's chest and threw her backward. Dirt, smoke, and debris filled the air. Her ears rang with a high-pitched whine that blocked out everything else. She hit the ground hard, her medical pack cushioning the impact. Training kicked in immediately. Am I hit? She ran mental checks. Legs moving, arms working, no blood, not hit. Through the smoke and dust, she saw Chen's body airborne, tumbling like a rag doll. He crashed into the ground 15 yards away with sickening force. Maria tried to scream his name but couldn't hear her own voice over the ringing. Then the gunfire started. Muzzle flashes erupted from 3 different positions, rooftops and alleyways. Taliban fighters had been waiting, watching, timing their ambush perfectly. The IED wasn't meant to kill them all. It was meant to wound and scatter them, make them vulnerable. A classic ambush strategy. "Contact 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Someone was screaming, probably Morrison, but Maria could barely hear. She scrambled for cover behind a market stall as bullets chewed through the wood above her head. Splinters rained down. Another Marine, Davis, slid into cover beside her, returning fire. But all Maria could see was Chen. He lay in the open, completely exposed in the worst possible position. A kill zone between their cover and the Taliban positions. She watched, horrified, as blood began pooling beneath him. Dark blood, arterial blood, the kind of bleeding that meant minutes, not hours. Chen's hand moved weakly. He was alive. "Chen," Maria screamed, but he didn't respond. Her medical training assessed what she could see from 30 yards away. Lower extremity trauma, probably the IED blast. He wasn't moving his legs. The blood pool was expanding too fast. Femoral artery, had to be. "Doc, stay down." Davis grabbed her vest as she started to rise. Bullets zipped through the air where her head had been a second before. The Taliban had excellent positions, excellent fields of fire. They'd planned this perfectly. Maria's radio crackled. Morrison's voice, "Doc, sitrep on Chen." "Can't reach him, sir. He's in the open, but he's bleeding out, arterial bleeding, lower extremity. He's got maybe 2 minutes." The gunfire intensified. Maria could hear Morrison coordinating, calling for air support, trying to suppress the Taliban positions. But it wasn't working. The enemy had too much cover, too many angles. They'd done this before. Through the dust and smoke, Maria watched Chen's hand move again, weakly reaching toward their position, toward safety, toward help. His fingers clawed at the dirt. He was trying to crawl. With what had to be catastrophic leg injuries, possibly a severed femoral artery, he was trying to drag himself to safety. The movement stopped. His hand fell limply to the dirt. "No," Maria whispered. "No, no, no." She looked at her watch. 60 seconds since the explosion. Chen had maybe 90 seconds left before he bled out completely. Her mind raced through options. They were pinned down. Air support was at least 10 minutes away. Medevac would take longer. By the time they could safely reach him, Jimmy Chen would be dead. His daughter Emma would grow up without ever knowing her father's voice, his laugh, his love. Maria thought of the ultrasound photo in Chen's helmet. She thought of her father's trembling hands, his broken voice. "I left them. I heard Morrison calling for me and I left him." She looked at the 30 yards between her and Chen. 30 yards that might as well have been 30 miles. 30 yards of open ground with Taliban fighters waiting to kill anyone stupid enough to try crossing it. Davis saw her expression. "Doc, don't even think about it. You'll never make it." Maria didn't answer. She was counting Chen's remaining seconds, calculating angles, watching the blood spread across the Afghan dirt. Watching a young father die while his daughter's ultrasound picture stayed tucked safely in his helmet. Somewhere behind her, Morrison was shouting coordinates. Someone else was screaming for more ammunition. The gunfight was escalating, becoming desperate. And 30 yards away, Lance Corporal Jimmy Chen's life was draining away into the dust, one precious second at a time. The marketplace had transformed into hell on earth. Smoke from the IED blast hung thick in the air, mixing with dust kicked up by hundreds of rounds tearing through the village. Maria pressed herself against the market stall, her cheek against splintering wood as bullets chewed holes inches above her head. The sound was deafening. AK-47 fire had a distinctive crack, different from the deeper boom of American M4s. She could identify at least 6 enemy weapons, probably more. "Sector left, rooftop," Sergeant Davis screamed beside her, swinging his rifle up and firing controlled bursts. A Taliban fighter ducked behind a wall. Davis kept shooting, keeping the enemy's head down. "Doc, we got 3 positions confirmed, maybe more in the buildings." Maria barely heard him. Her entire focus was locked on Chen's body 30 yards away. She could see his chest rising and falling, shallow breaths, too fast. Shock. The blood pool beneath him had spread to nearly 3 feet wide, glistening darkly in the morning sun. That much blood loss meant he was deep into hemorrhagic shock. His body was shutting down, prioritizing vital organs, sacrificing limbs to keep the brain and heart alive. But even that wouldn't last long. 2 minutes, Maria whispered to herself, maybe less. Her medical training ran through the calculations automatically. Average adult male has roughly 5 liters of blood. Lose 40% and you're in severe shock. Lose 50% and you're dying. A severed femoral artery could pump out a liter in 3 minutes. Chen had been bleeding for 90 seconds. He'd already lost at least half a liter, possibly more if there were other injuries she couldn't see from her position. She watched his hand twitch again, fingers scraping weakly at the dirt. He was conscious. God help him, he was still conscious, aware that he was dying alone in the middle of a firefight. Maria had seen that before, the terrible awareness in a dying Marine's eyes when they realized help wasn't coming. "CHEN," she screamed again, though she knew he probably couldn't hear over the gunfire. "Stay with me." A bullet struck the ground 3 feet in front of Chen's head, kicking up dirt that settled across his face. The Taliban fighters could see him too. They knew exactly where he was. The next burst might not miss. Morrison's voice cut through the chaos on the radio. "All positions sound off. I need a head count." The Marines called in one by one. 8 voices. Everyone accounted for except Chen. Morrison's voice came back tighter. "Medevac is inbound, ETA 12 minutes. Air support 4 minutes out. We hold position until—" "Sir, Chen doesn't have 12 minutes, Maria interrupted. "He doesn't have 4. I'm looking at arterial bleeding, probably femoral. He's in severe shock. He'll be dead in 2 minutes, maybe less." Silence on the radio. Not actual silence. The gunfire was continuous, overwhelming, but that terrible pause when everyone understood the math and didn't like the answer. "Doc," Morrison's voice was strained. He was 20 yards to her right behind a concrete barrier. "I can see him too. I see the situation. But that's a kill zone. Anyone who tries to cross that ground is dead. We wait for air support to suppress those positions." "He'll be gone in 4 minutes, sir." Another burst of gunfire. Maria watched rounds impact around Chen, stitching a line in the dirt that passed within inches of his torso. The Taliban was zeroing in, figuring out the range. They'd hit him soon, finish what the IED started. Private First Class Lopez crawled up beside Maria, his young face streaked with dirt and terror. At 19, this was his first real firefight. "Doc, is Chen? Is he?" "He's alive," Maria said, though she was running out of reasons to believe it would stay that way. "He's alive and we're going to get him." "How?" Lopez's voice cracked. "There's no way across. They've got us pinned from 3 directions. Anyone who moves is dead." He wasn't wrong. Maria could see the tactical situation clearly. The Taliban had set up a perfect L-shaped ambush. 1 position on a rooftop to the east, roughly 40 yards away. 2 positions in a building complex to the south, maybe 35 yards, and at least 1 more shooter in an alley to the southwest. They had overlapping fields of fire covering the entire marketplace. Chen lay in the center of it all, the worst possible position. The stall she hid behind was already disintegrating under sustained fire. Splinters and chunks of wood rained down constantly. They couldn't stay here much longer anyway. Staff Sergeant Mike Donovan, the man whose life Maria had saved 2 months ago, slid into position on her other side. His face was grim. "Doc, I know what you're thinking. Don't." "He's got a daughter, Donovan, 3 months old. He's never even held her. And he never will if you get yourself killed trying to reach him. Look at that ground." Donovan pointed with his rifle barrel. 30 yards of open space. No cover. Multiple shooters with clear lines of sight. It's suicide. Maria looked. Really looked. He was right. The marketplace was completely open, just packed dirt with nowhere to hide, nowhere to take cover. If she tried to run across, she'd be exposed for at least 15 seconds. Probably longer while she worked on Chen. Against 6 or more trained fighters with automatic weapons, her chances were essentially 0. But Chen's chances of surviving without immediate medical intervention were actually 0. Mathematical certainty. She'd seen enough arterial bleeds to know. 4 minutes until air support, Donovan continued. They'll suppress the Taliban positions. Then we can get to him safely. He's got 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, not 4. Maybe the bleeding stopped. Maybe the wound isn't as bad as... Look at the blood pool, Donovan. Look at it. Maria's voice was raw. That's a leader on the ground at least. He's in severe shock. His body's already shutting down. By the time air support arrives, by the time we safely cross that ground, we'll be recovering a corpse. Another explosion. A Taliban RPG struck the building behind them, showering them with debris. The enemy was getting bolder, more aggressive. Morrison was screaming coordinates into the radio, trying to get the inbound aircraft directed to the right targets. Maria watched Chen's chest movements growing shallower, more irregular, agonal breathing. The body's last desperate attempt to get oxygen. It was a sign of imminent death. She'd seen it before, held Marines' hands while they transitioned from agonal breathing to nothing at all. Davis grabbed her shoulder. "Doc, there's nothing you can do. Sometimes. Sometimes we can't save them all, you know that." She did know that. God, she knew it intimately. The 4 Marines she'd lost haunted every quiet moment. Anderson, Hughes, Perez, Young. She could recite their full names, their hometones, what they'd said in their final moments. Those failures carved pieces out of her soul. But those Marines had been truly unreachable, dead before she arrived, or injured so catastrophically that nothing could save them. Chen was different. Chen was savable. A tourniquet and pressure bandaging could stop the bleeding. Fluid resuscitation could pull him out of shock. He could survive this. He could go home to Emma. He could be a father. If someone was willing to cross 30 yards of hell to reach him. Maria's hand found the tourniquet on her vest, fingers tracing its familiar shape. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "I heard Morrison calling for me, and I left him. That weight will kill you slower than any bullet." On the radio, Morrison was getting updates. Air support 2 minutes out. Apache inbound with Hellfire missiles. They'll clear those positions. 2 minutes? Chen didn't have 2 minutes. Maria watched his hand stop moving. Watched his fingers go still in the dirt, no longer reaching, no longer fighting. Was he unconscious now, or already gone? From 30 yards away, with smoke and dust obscuring her vision, she couldn't tell. What she could tell was that no one else was moving to help him. The Marines were pinned down, following orders, waiting for air support, doing the tactically correct thing, the safe thing, the thing that meant Jimmy Chen's 3-month-old daughter would grow up without a father. Morrison's voice came through the radio again, directed at her. "Doc, I know this is hard, but we can't lose you trying to save someone who might already be gone. You're too valuable. These Marines need you." Might already be gone. The words every corpsman dreaded. The excuse that let you justify standing still while someone bled out. The permission to fail without guilt. But Maria had seen Chen's hand moving 20 seconds ago. She'd seen his chest rise and fall. He wasn't gone, not yet, and might be wasn't the same as is. The gunfire continued its terrible rhythm. Smoke drifted across the marketplace. Chen's blood seeped into Afghan soil, and Maria Rodriguez faced the choice that would define everything she'd become, everything she believed, everything she'd promised her broken father in a Texas garage 11 years ago. 30 yards away, a young father was dying. 30 yards away, orders said stay put. 30 yards away, honor said run. Time moved strangely in combat. Maria had experienced it before, seconds stretching into hours, entire lifetimes compressed into heartbeats. But this moment felt different, suspended, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what she would do. She stared at Chen's motionless body through the smoke and dust. Blood continued spreading beneath him, a dark stain growing wider with each passing second. From her position, she could see his face turned toward them, eyes closed. Was he unconscious, dead, still fighting? The not knowing was torture. "Doc," Donovan's voice was gentle but firm. He'd survived because of her, and now he was trying to save her from herself. "You can't help him if you're dead. Think about all the other Marines who need you. Think rationally." Rationally? Maria wanted to laugh. There was nothing rational about war. Nothing rational about 18-year-old kids bleeding out in foreign deserts. Nothing rational about a young father dying while his daughter's ultrasound photo stayed tucked in his helmet like a talisman that had failed. She checked her watch. 2 minutes and 40 seconds since the IED. Chen had lost at least 1.5 liters of blood by now, maybe more. His blood pressure would be catastrophically low. His organs were being starved of oxygen. Even if she reached him right now, the damage might be irreversible. Traumatic brain injury from hypoxia, kidney failure, cardiac arrest. But might be wasn't the same as definitely. Might be meant there was a chance. Morrison's voice cut through the radio again, harder this time. Rodriguez, I'm giving you a direct order. Stay in position. Do not attempt to reach Chen. That is an order. Acknowledge. Maria's finger hovered over the radio transmit button. She should acknowledge. She should say yes, sir, like she'd been trained. Chain of command existed for good reasons. Officers had the big picture, made decisions based on information she didn't have. Disobeying a direct order in combat was court-martial territory, career-ending, possibly criminal. Her finger stayed frozen over the button. "Doc, please," Lopez whispered beside her. The kid was terrified, not just of the Taliban, but of what he saw in Maria's eyes. "Don't do this. My mom says you saved her cousin's life in Sangin last year. Lance Corporal Martinez, you can't save anybody if you're dead." Martinez. Maria remembered him. Compound fracture, severe bleeding, but she'd reached him behind solid cover. Nothing like this situation, nothing even close. Another burst of gunfire raked across the marketplace. She watched rounds impact near Chen, one striking close enough that his body jerked from the concussive force. They were still shooting at him, making sure. The Taliban fighters knew wounded Americans drew out rescuers. They knew corpsmen couldn't help themselves, that they'd run into fire to save their Marines. It was a tactic as old as war itself. This was a trap, and Maria knew it. The IED, the ambush positions, Chen's placement in the perfect kill zone, all designed to bait them into making exactly the move she was contemplating. The Taliban wanted her to try this. They were counting on American sentimentality, on the Marine Corps obsession with leaving no man behind. Davis was on the radio with Morrison, his voice urgent. "Sir, we need to suppress those positions now. Chen's still alive. I can see him breathing, but Doc's about to do something stupid." "Negative," Morrison snapped back. "Air support 60 seconds out. Everyone holds position. That is a direct order to everyone." 60 seconds. The Apache helicopter would arrive with its 30 chain gun and Hellfire missiles. It would light up those Taliban positions, turn the ambush around. In 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, the area would be suppressed enough for a safe rescue. Maria looked at Chen. His chest was barely moving now. Those shallow, rapid breaths had slowed. His body was giving up, running out of blood to pump, oxygen to deliver. 2 minutes from now, there might not be anything left to rescue. She thought about her father, about the night he'd broken down in that garage. The names he'd cried out weren't strangers. They'd been his brothers, his responsibility. Morrison, the Marine he'd mentioned, had been his best friend. They'd gone through boot camp together, survived 2 tours together. And when Morrison got hit, when he lay in a rice paddy calling for help, Carlos Rodriguez had followed orders. He'd fallen back to the extraction point like he'd been told. He'd left Morrison behind. The Navy Cross they gave him for actions earlier that day sat in a shoebox because he couldn't stand to look at it. What did bravery matter when you'd failed the one test that actually counted? "I heard him calling for me," her father had wept. "For 30 years I've heard him calling." Maria's hand moved to her vest, fingers finding the St. Michael medallion her father had given her before deployment. The patron saint of warriors. On the back he'd had it engraved, "Never leave them." Not never leave a Marine behind, just them. Because at the moment of choice they weren't abstractions or tactical considerations. They were people, brothers, family. "Doc, look at me." Donovan grabbed her shoulder, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I know what you're thinking. I know what your dad told you, but this isn't Vietnam. We have air support. We have medevac. We have rules and procedures that keep everyone alive. You don't have to be a hero, just be smart." Smart would be letting him die, Maria heard herself say. Smart would be staying alive so you can save the next 10 guys who get hit. Donovan's voice rose. You think Chen would want you to die trying to save him. You think he'd want his daughter growing up knowing someone else's kid lost their mother trying to rescue her dad? That hit hard. Maria didn't have children, but she had a family. A mother who prayed rosaries every night for her safety. 2 brothers who video called every week. Nephews and nieces who drew her pictures and mailed care packages. What right did she have to throw her life away? But then, what right did she have to let Chin die without trying? Morrison's voice again, angrier. Rodriguez, acknowledge my order, acknowledge. Maria looked at the other Marines. Davis, watching her with fear and understanding mixed together. Lopez, barely 19, tears cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. Donovan, gripping his rifle so tight his knuckles had gone white. Then she looked at Chen. Even from 30 yards, she could see the ultrasound photo had fallen from his helmet, lying in the dirt beside his head. Emma's tiny face smiling up at the Afghan sky, oblivious to the fact that her father was dying inches away. Maria's radio crackled. A new voice, the Apache pilot. Viper 6 to ground units 30 seconds from target. Designate hostiles and take cover. This is gonna be loud. 30 seconds. Then the missiles would fly, the 30 rounds would tear through buildings, and the Taliban would either die or run. In 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, they could reach Chen safely. Maria looked at her watch. 3 minutes and 15 seconds since the IED. She didn't need to guess anymore. She knew with medical certainty. Chen had maybe 45 seconds of life left, possibly less. His heart was beating on empty, his brain starving. By the time the Apache finished its gun run, they'd be collecting a body. Doc, please, Davis's voice broke. Don't do this, don't make us watch you die. She understood what he meant. They'd have to watch her run across that kill zone. They'd have to see her get hit, go down, bleed out. They'd have to live with it, carry it. She'd be transferring the weight her father carried, distributing it among 8 men who'd spend the rest of their lives wondering if they could have stopped her. Selfish, this was selfish. 1 life versus 9, the needs of the many. Basic utilitarian calculus said stay put. But Maria had never been good at math when it involved deciding who deserved to live. She looked at Donovan. You remember what you said after I pulled you out, after I saved your life. Donovan's jaw clenched. Doc, don't. You said you owed me. You said if I ever needed anything ever, you'd back me up, remember? That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Maria started checking her gear, tightening straps, preparing to move. Chen's got a 3-month-old daughter, Emma. He's never even held her. She's going to grow up without a father if I don't do this. She's going to grow up without a father anyway. Donovan grabbed her vest. Because you're not going to make it. Look at that ground. Look at it. Maria looked. 30 yards of nothing. No cover. No concealment. Just open space where bullets flew freely and death came easy. The Taliban shooters were waiting, probably adjusting their aim right now, ready for someone stupid enough to try exactly what she was considering. Morrison on the radio, Viper 6 engaging, everyone get down. The Apache opened fire. The sound was apocalyptic, a mechanical roar that drowned out everything else. Maria saw explosions blossom on the rooftop where one Taliban position had been. The building complex to the south erupted in flames. 30-millimeter rounds tore through mud brick like paper. But the shooting didn't stop. At least 2 Taliban positions were still active, still firing, still covering that kill zone. The Apache had suppressed them but not eliminated them. Those 30 yards were still deadly. Chen's hand twitched, once, weakly, a final spark of life before the darkness took him. Maria stood up. Doc, no, multiple voices screamed at once. She looked at them. These Marines she'd fought beside, bled beside, saved. Cover me, she said quietly. That's insane, Davis shouted. Morrison ordered you to. I know what he ordered. Maria checked her tourniquet one last time. Tell Emma her daddy loved her, make sure she knows. You tell her yourself. Lopez was crying now. Please, Doc, please don't. Maria thought of her father's trembling hands, thought of 30 years of nightmares, thought of a life half-lived because half your soul stayed behind in a rice paddy with the brother you'd abandoned. She keyed her radio. "Sir, I'm sorry." Then she ran. Maria didn't think. Thinking would have stopped her. She simply moved, launching herself from behind the disintegrating market stall like a sprinter off starting blocks. Her boots hit the packed earth and she ran, head down, legs pumping, medical pack bouncing against her spine with each stride. The world exploded around her. Covering fire, covering fire. Donovan's voice was raw, desperate. Behind her, the remaining Marines opened up with everything they had. M4 rifles on full automatic, the saw gunner laying down a continuous stream of suppressive fire. The sound was overwhelming, a wall of noise that seemed to push against her back, propelling her forward. 25 yards to go. A bullet cracked past her left ear, so close she felt the displacement of air. Her body wanted to flinch, to dive for cover that didn't exist, but she forced herself to keep running. Low and fast, just like they'd trained. Make yourself a hard target. Don't give them time to aim. 20 yards. The ground erupted 2 feet to her right, automatic weapons fire stitching a line across the dirt, tracking her movement. The Taliban shooter was leading her, calculating her speed. She juked left instinctively, breaking her rhythm. More rounds impacted where she would have been. 15 yards. Maria's lungs burned. The weight of her gear felt like it had doubled. 80 pounds of equipment, body armor, ammunition, medical supplies. Her legs screamed in protest, but she pushed harder. Chen's body was directly ahead now, growing larger with each stride. She could see his chest, still moving barely, irregularly. Agonal breathing. Minutes from death. Seconds, maybe. Behind her, Morrison was screaming into the radio. "Viper 6, we have a corpsman in the open. Danger close. Suppress those positions now." The Apache's chain gun roared again, its 30 rounds tearing into a building to the south. Explosions. Smoke. Chaos. But the Taliban fighters were experienced, battle-hardened. They knew how to fight Americans, how to use cover, how to pop up and shoot between the helicopter's gun runs. 10 yards. Maria saw the muzzle flash from a rooftop, an AK-47 firing directly at her. She didn't have time to process fear, just recognition. 3 rounds. She saw them kick up dirt in a line racing toward her like deadly dominoes. She threw herself into a slide, boots first, using her momentum. The rounds passed over her by inches. 5 yards. She was almost there, so close. Chen's face was visible now, gray, waxy, covered in dust and blood. His eyes were closed. Was he unconscious? Dead? She couldn't tell, couldn't stop to assess, just had to reach him. Another burst of fire, this one closer. Maria felt something tug at her left sleeve, not pain, just a pull, like someone had grabbed her uniform. She glanced down in the fraction of a second she had. A hole. The bullet had passed through her sleeve without touching skin. 2 inches closer and it would have shattered her humerus, rendered her arm useless. 2 yards. Almost there, Doc, keep moving. That was Davis, his voice cracking with stress and fear. The Marines' covering fire was constant now, a continuous roar. They were going through ammunition at an unsustainable rate, but they didn't care. Their corpsman was in the open. Their doc was running into hell for one of their own. 1 yard. Maria slid the final distance on her knees, her body slamming into Chen's with enough force to knock the breath from her lungs. She immediately threw herself over him, using her own body as a shield. Rounds cracked overhead. One struck the ground so close that dirt sprayed across her face, into her mouth. She tasted Afghan soil mixed with cordite and copper. "Chen," she grabbed his face, checking for response. His skin was cold and clammy, classic shock. His eyes fluttered but didn't open. "Chen, stay with me." Her hands moved automatically, running through trauma assessment with practiced speed. Airway clear, he was breathing. Circulation, she felt for a carotid pulse. Weak, thready, way too fast. His heart was hammering at probably 140 beats per minute, trying desperately to circulate blood that wasn't there. She looked down at his legs and her heart sank. The IED blast had shredded his left leg from mid-thigh down. She could see bone, the white of his femur exposed through torn flesh and shredded uniform. But worse, much worse, was the blood. It wasn't spurting anymore because his blood pressure had dropped too low to generate that kind of force. Instead, it oozed steadily, dark and thick. The femoral artery was definitely severed. He'd lost massive amounts of blood. Okay, I got you, Maria said, more to herself than to Chen. Her hands were already moving, ripping open her medical pack. Tourniquet first. Stop the bleeding or nothing else mattered. A bullet struck 6 inches from her knee. She flinched but kept working. Her fingers found the tourniquet, pulled it free. She wrapped it around Chen's thigh, high and tight, as close to his groin as possible. The windlass, she twisted it, hard, ignoring Chen's unconscious groan of pain. Twisted until the bleeding slowed, then stopped. Good, she muttered. 1 problem solved. 1,000 more to go. Another assessment. His right leg, fractured definitely, but no major bleeding. His abdomen, she ran her hands over it, checking for distension, rigidity. Possible internal injuries, but she couldn't deal with those here. His chest, she ripped open his uniform, pressing her ear against his sternum. Breath sounds, left side diminished, right side present but weak, possible pneumothorax, collapsed lung. She needed to seal it, needed to. The ground beside Chen's head exploded. Maria threw herself flat, covering him completely. Shrapnel tore through the air above them. She felt something slice across her right shoulder blade, hot, sharp, immediate pain, not deep but deep enough. Her own blood started soaking through her uniform. "Doc, you hit," Morrison's voice on the radio. "I'm okay," she shouted back, though she wasn't sure that was true. The shoulder wound burned like fire, but she could still move her arm. That was all that mattered. Chen's critical. Femoral artery severed, possible pneumothorax, severe shock. I need to stabilize him. Negative, no time. Apache's making another pass, then we're coming to get you both. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Maria looked at Chen's injuries, looked at the blood-soaked ground beneath him, looked at his gray face, his blue-tinged lips. He was dying, right now, in front of her, despite everything she'd risked to reach him. No, that wasn't acceptable. Her hands moved faster, pressure dressing on the leg wound wrapped tight. IV kit, she ripped open the package with her teeth, found a vein in his arm, difficult, his veins were collapsed from blood loss. She missed once, tried again. There. The catheter slid in. She connected the bag of saline, held it up with one hand while her other hand found her shears. She cut away his body armor, his uniform top, exposed his chest. The sucking chest wound was on his left side, just below the nipple. Every breath drew air into his chest cavity where it shouldn't be. She grabbed a chest seal, tore it open, applied it. The sucking sound stopped. "Come on, Chen," she whispered. "Come on, your daughter needs you. Emma needs you, fight." A bullet struck her medical pack. She felt the impact through her body, felt the pack jerk. Supplies scattered. She ignored it, kept working. Wrapped another pressure bandage around a laceration on his arm she hadn't noticed before. Checked his airway again, still clear. Pulse, still present, barely. The Apache's guns roared overhead. Explosions rocked the marketplace. The Taliban fire diminished but didn't stop. They were determined, fanatic. They wanted American blood. 10 seconds, Doc. Get ready to move. Maria looked at Chen. He was alive. Barely. Impossibly. Against all odds and medical probability, his heart was still beating. She'd stopped the major bleeding, sealed his chest, started fluid resuscitation. He had a chance now, a real chance. But they still had to cross 30 yards of hell to get him to safety. She heard boots pounding. Davis and Lopez were coming, moving in a low run with Donovan providing covering fire. They slid in beside her, their faces masks of fear and determination. "We got him, Doc," Davis panted. "Grab his left side. Lopez, take right. We move on 3. Maria positioned herself at Chen's head, cradling his neck to stabilize his spine. Her shoulder wound screamed in protest, but she ignored it. Pain was irrelevant. Getting Chen to safety was everything. 1, Davis shouted. They lifted together. Chen's dead weight, probably 200 pounds with gear, felt like twice that. Maria's legs trembled. 2. More gunfire. The Marines' suppressive fire intensified. Someone was screaming coordinates. The Apache was coming around for another gun run. 3. They moved. Chen's hand fell limply, the ultrasound photo still lying in the dirt behind them. Emma's smiling face, abandoned in the marketplace where her father had nearly died. But he was alive. Against every tactical calculation, every probability, every order that said to wait for safety, Jimmy Chen was alive. And Maria Rodriguez had just proven that sometimes the impossible was simply what happened when you refused to accept any other option. They stumbled toward safety, bullets following them every step, 3 Marines and 1 corpsman carrying their brother home. The world became a blur of pain and motion. Maria's legs burned as they carried Chen backward, stumbling over debris and uneven ground. Davis had Chen's left side, Lopez his right, and Maria cradled his head and neck, trying to keep his spine stabilized while moving at a shuffle run that felt agonizingly slow. 15 yards from cover, might as well have been 15 miles. A bullet snapped past Maria's ear with that distinctive crack that meant it had missed by inches. She heard Lopez cry out, not a scream, just a sharp grunt of pain. "I'm okay, keep moving," he gasped, but Maria saw the dark stain spreading on his left thigh. He'd been hit but was still carrying Chen's weight, still moving. "Almost there," Davis shouted, though his voice sounded strangled with effort. 10 yards, keep going." Chen's eyes suddenly opened, not fully conscious but aware enough to register pain and fear. His mouth worked, trying to form words. Blood bubbled at the corner of his lips, internal injuries, possibly bleeding into his lungs. Maria wanted to stop, to assess, to treat, but stopping meant dying. They had to reach cover first. "Hang on, Jimmy," Maria shouted over the gunfire. "We're getting you out, stay with me." His hand suddenly gripped her vest with surprising strength. His eyes found hers, wide and terrified. He knew. He understood how badly he was hurt, understood he was dying. Maria had seen that look before, the moment when a wounded Marine grasped the reality of their situation. "Emma," he whispered, the word barely audible over the chaos. "Tell her." "You'll tell her yourself," Maria interrupted fiercely. "You're not dying today, you hear me? Not today." The Apache made another gun run, its chain gun screaming as it tore into the remaining Taliban positions. The incoming fire reduced but didn't stop. These were hardened fighters, veterans who'd survived years of American air power. They knew how to use cover, knew when to shoot and when to hide. 5 yards from the market stall. So close. Maria could see Donovan firing controlled bursts, trying to suppress the shooters. Could see the fear and hope mixed on his face as he watched them approach. Chen's grip on her vest weakened, his eyes rolled back. "No," Maria screamed. "Chen, stay awake, stay with me." But his hand fell away, his body going completely limp. His chest stopped moving. "He's crashing," Maria yelled. "Get HIM-2 cover now." They covered the final yards in a desperate rush, practically falling behind the market stall. The moment they had minimal cover, Maria was working. Her hands flew through emergency procedures with the speed and precision of 15 months in combat. "He's not breathing," she tilted Chen's head back, checked his airway clear. Her fingers found his carotid pulse. Nothing. No pulse, starting CPR. "Doc, your shoulder," Davis started. "Forget it," Maria snapped. She positioned her hands on Chen's sternum and started compressions. Hard and fast, exactly like she'd trained. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The chest seal she'd applied earlier made rescue breathing difficult, but she forced air into his lungs anyway. Come on, Chen, come on. Compress, compress, compress. She counted mentally, maintaining rhythm. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Chen's lips were blue, his skin ashen gray. He'd lost so much blood that even if she restarted his heart, there might not be enough blood to carry oxygen to his brain. Donovan was on the radio. Medevac, this is Steel 2. We have one urgent surgical, traumatic amputation, chest trauma in cardiac arrest, ETA. Steel 2, Medevac is 4 minutes out. LZ is hot. We need confirmation it's secure. It's not secure, Donovan shouted, but we've got a Marine dying right now. Maria kept pumping, 30 compressions. Her shoulder wound screamed with each thrust, but she ignored it. 2 breaths. Chen's chest rose and fell with the air she forced in, but his heart remained still. 45 seconds of CPR. She checked for pulse. Nothing. Lopez, get me the epinephrine from my pack, Maria ordered, never stopping compressions. Red box labeled EPI. Lopez, his own leg wound bleeding through a hastily applied bandage, dug through her scattered medical supplies. His hands shook. I can't. There's too much stuff. Left pocket, red box. Maria's voice was sharp, authoritative. Lopez found it, hands fumbling with the packaging. Open it, drop 1 milligram. Do it now. 90 seconds of CPR. Maria's arms burned. Sweat poured down her face, mixing with dirt and Chen's blood. She'd done CPR before, saved 2 Marines this way, lost 3 others. The odds weren't good. After massive trauma and blood loss, cardiac arrest was usually the body's final surrender. But Chen had a daughter. That had to count for something. Lopez handed her the syringe with epinephrine. Maria kept one hand on Chen's chest, using the other to find the IV line she'd started earlier. She pushed the medication, praying the collapsed veins would carry it to his heart. Breathe, Jimmy, she whispered. Your little girl needs you. Emma needs her daddy. Breathe. She resumed compressions, 30 more. Her shoulder wound had reopened, blood running down her back. She felt lightheaded, blood loss, adrenaline crash, exhaustion. Didn't matter. 2 breaths into Chen's lungs. 2 minutes of CPR. The statistics ran through her head unbidden. After 2 minutes of cardiac arrest, brain damage becomes likely. After 4 minutes, probable. After 6 minutes, almost certain even if you restart the heart. Check for pulse, still nothing. Doc, Davis's voice was soft, sad. Maybe. No, Maria started compressions again. We don't quit, we don't ever quit. 30 compressions. Her vision blurred, the world tilted. She realized dimly that she was going into shock herself. Blood loss from her shoulder, adrenaline dump, physical exhaustion. 2 breaths. Chen's chest suddenly heaved on its own. Maria froze. Did you see that? See what? Donovan asked. He moved, his chest moved. Her fingers flew to his carotid artery. They're faint, irregular, but there, a pulse. I've got a pulse, weak but present. She checked his breathing. Shallow, gasping but breathing. His body had restarted. Impossibly, miraculously, Jimmy Chen's heart was beating again. Oh my God, Lopez whispered. Oh my God, Doc, you did it. He's not saved yet, Maria said, but relief flooded through her. She quickly reassessed, pulse present at about 110, weak and thready. Respirations 8 per minute, shallow. Blood pressure probably barely compatible with life, but alive. Currently, impossibly alive. The medevac helicopter's rotors thundered overhead. Maria looked up to see the Black Hawk descending into the marketplace, its door gunners laying down suppressive fire. The Apache circled overhead like a protective angel, its weapons trained on the remaining Taliban positions. Get ready to move. Morrison was suddenly beside them, grabbing Chen's legs. We load him and we GO, 30 seconds. They lifted Chen again. Maria kept one hand on his neck, the other holding the IV bag high. Every step jolted his broken body, but his heart kept beating. His chest kept rising and falling. He was holding on by the thinnest thread, but he was holding on. The helicopter touched down 50 feet away, rotors whipping dust into a blinding storm. Maria stumbled toward it, her legs barely holding her up. Her shoulder screamed. Her vision narrowed to a tunnel. But she kept moving, kept one hand on Chen's pulse point, monitoring that precious heartbeat. They reached the helicopter. The flight medic, a young guy Maria had never seen before, took one look at Chen and his eyes went wide. Jesus Christ, what happened to him? IED in ambush, Maria gasped as they loaded Chen onto the bird. Traumatic amputation, left leg, femoral artery severed, chest trauma with pneumothorax, massive blood loss, was in cardiac arrest for 2 minutes. I've given epinephrine, applied tourniquets, sealed the chest wound, started 1 IV with normal saline. He needs blood now. Type O negative if you don't have time to type him. The flight medic was already moving, pulling out supplies. Got it. You did good, Doc. You saved his life. Get him to Bastion, Maria said. He's got a 3-month-old daughter. He needs to. The world tilted sideways. Maria's legs gave out. She was falling, watching the sky spin above her. Strong hands caught her. Donovan. His face swam in and out of focus. Doc, you're hit. I'm fine, Maria slurred. Just shoulder, not bad. You've lost a lot of blood. Donovan was lowering her to the helicopter floor. The flight medic was suddenly there, cutting away her uniform top, exposing the shoulder wound. Shrapnel, the medic said. Deep laceration hit the trapezius muscle. She's losing blood fast. Maria tried to sit up. Chen, need to monitor. We've got Chen, the medic said firmly, pushing her back down. Now you're the patient, Doc. Stay still. The helicopter lifted off, banking hard. Through the open door, Maria could see the marketplace shrinking below, the place where she'd run across 30 yards of hell, where she'd held death at bay through sheer stubborn refusal to let it win. Her hand found Chen's. His fingers were cold, but she felt his pulse in his wrist, still beating, still fighting. Good job, Jimmy, she whispered as darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. You stay strong. Emma needs you. The last thing she saw before unconsciousness took her was Chen's chest rising and falling, each breath a small victory against impossible odds. Maria drifted in and out of consciousness as the Black Hawk carved through the Afghan sky. Each time awareness returned, she heard different things. The flight medic shouting vitals, the rhythmic beep of a heart monitor, Donovan's voice praying in Spanish, the pilot calling ahead to Camp Bastion's trauma center. The helicopter vibrated through her bones, a mechanical heartbeat that seemed to sync with Chen's fragile pulse. BP's dropping again, the flight medic yelled. I need another bag of Oneg running wide open. Maria's eyes cracked open. Through blurred vision, she saw the medic working frantically over Chen's body. IV lines ran from both arms. His face was covered by an oxygen mask. The stumps of his mangled left leg were wrapped in blood-soaked bandages, but his chest was still moving. Up and down, breathing. How long? Maria's voice came out as a croak. The flight medic glanced at her. Doc, you need to stay still. You're in shock. How long to Bastion? 3 minutes. Hang on. He returned his attention to Chen, adjusting IV flow rates, checking the chest seal she'd applied. Whoever did this field work saved his life. Textbook trauma response. Pride flickered through Maria's fog of pain and exhaustion, but it was quickly swallowed by worry. Chen looked terrible. His skin had gone from gray to almost translucent. Even with the oxygen mask, his lips still had that blue tinge. His body was running on empty, held together by medical supplies and stubborn will. Donovan's face appeared above her. His eyes were red-rimmed, whether from dust or tears she couldn't tell. You crazy, beautiful, stupid woman, he said, his voice thick. You actually did it. Is Lopez okay? Maria asked, remembering the young Marine getting hit. Through and through on his thigh. He'll be fine. Already talking about the story he's gonna tell. Donovan's hand gripped hers. But you, Doc, you lost a lot of blood. That shrapnel went deep. Chen lost more. Chen's got 3 medics working on him now. You've got me, and I barely passed combat lifesaver training. He tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. Morrison's losing his mind, by the way. Doesn't know whether to recommend you for a medal or a court-martial. Court-martial, Maria whispered. Disobeyed direct order. You saved a Marine's life. Doesn't change what I did. The helicopter began to descend. Through the open door, Maria saw Camp Bastion's sprawling base, rows of buildings, vehicles, the large red cross marking the trauma center. The medical facility that had saved countless lives, that represented safety and advanced care, and a chance at survival. 30 seconds to touchdown, the pilot called back. The flight medic was talking rapidly into his radio. Bastion trauma, this is Dustoff 7-1. 2 critical patients inbound. Patient 1, male, early 20s, traumatic amputation left lower extremity, chest trauma, massive hemorrhage, post-cardiac arrest. Patient 2, female, late 20s, deep shrapnel laceration right shoulder, significant blood loss, shock. ETA 30 seconds. The Black Hawk touched down with a gentle bump. The side doors flew open, and suddenly there were people everywhere. Trauma surgeons in blood-stained scrubs, nurses with equipment, corpsmen with stretchers. The controlled chaos of a level 1 trauma center receiving critical casualties. Get HIM2 OR2 now, a surgeon shouted, taking one look at Chen. He needs blood, lots of it, and we need to get him on the table 5 minutes ago. They pulled Chen from the helicopter with practiced efficiency. Maria tried to sit up to follow, to maintain that connection to the Marine whose life she'd fought so hard to save. But hands pushed her back down. Ma'am, you need to stay still. A nurse, young, female with kind eyes, was cutting away the rest of Maria's uniform. We're taking you to OR3. Dr. Patterson's going to fix that shoulder. Chen, Maria gasped. Lance Corporal Chen, I need to know. Dr. Maida's taking him, best trauma surgeon we have. If anyone can save him, she can. The nurse started an IV in Maria's left arm. But right now, you need to let us take care of you. The stretcher lifted. Maria caught one last glimpse of Chen being wheeled away at a run, surrounded by medical personnel. Then she was moving in a different direction, fluorescent lights passing overhead in a hypnotic rhythm. Donovan jogged alongside her stretcher. I'm not leaving her, he told the nurse firmly. You'll have to wait outside the OR. Fine, but I'm not leaving this building until I know she's okay. The double doors to the operating room loomed ahead. Maria's mind was fuzzy, shock and blood loss making it hard to focus. But one thought kept repeating, did I do enough? Will Chen make it? Dr. Patterson appeared in her field of vision, a middle-aged man with graying hair and steady hands. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, I'm going to take care of that shoulder. You're going to be fine. Chen, she mumbled again, please, someone tell me. Dr. Maida will do everything possible, Patterson said gently. Right now, you need to focus on yourself. You've lost almost 2 liters of blood. That wound is deep. The shrapnel damaged muscle tissue and nicked a vessel. You're lucky it wasn't worse. Lucky? Maria almost laughed. She'd run across 30 yards under machine gun fire, performed CPR in a combat zone, and dragged a dying Marine to safety. Luck had nothing to do with it. The anesthesiologist appeared, placing a mask over her face. Count backward from 10 for me. 10, 9, 8, the world began to fade. Chen, Emma, tell her. Darkness swallowed her. 6 hours later. Maria woke to the sterile smell of hospital and the steady beep of monitors. Her shoulder felt like someone had set it on fire, then wrapped it in concrete. Pain radiated down her arm with each heartbeat. She groaned. Welcome back, Doc. Donovan's voice came from her left. He sat in a chair beside her bed, looking exhausted but relieved. You've been out for 6 hours. Surgery went well. Patterson said you'll have full function back in a few months with physical therapy. Maria's mouth was dry as sand. Chen. Donovan's expression shifted, something complex passing across his features. Fear gripped Maria's heart. No, after everything, after running into hell and restarting his heart and getting him here. No. Tell me, she whispered. Donovan leaned forward. He's alive. The relief was so intense, Maria felt tears spring to her eyes. Dr. Maida operated for 4 hours, Donovan continued. He coded twice more on the table, but they brought him back both times. He's lost his left leg below the knee. They couldn't save it. Probably going to lose most of his left arm too. Multiple internal injuries. He's on a ventilator, sedated, critical but stable. He's alive, Maria repeated, letting it sink in. Against all odds, all statistics, all reasonable expectations, Jimmy Chen was alive. Because of you. Donovan's voice was rough with emotion. The surgeon said if you'd waited even 1 more minute, he would have been gone. Brain death from blood loss. But you got that tourniquet on him, sealed his chest, started CPR exactly when needed. You gave them something to work with. Maria closed her eyes. The weight of the last 12 hours crashed over her. The fear, the adrenaline, the desperate run across open ground. The feel of Chen's heart stopping under her hands. The prayer that she wasn't too late. There's more, Donovan said quietly. Morrison's outside. Half the battalion command is outside. The colonel wants to talk to you about what happened. The court-martial, Maria said. Maybe or maybe the medal. Donovan squeezed her hand. What you did was insane, Doc. Tactically stupid, strategically unsound against direct orders. It was also the bravest thing I've ever seen. You ran into a kill zone for your Marine. That means something. Through the hospital room window, Maria could see the Afghan mountains in the distance. The same mountains that had witnessed so much violence, so much loss. But today, they'd also witnessed something else. Courage, sacrifice, the absolute refusal to abandon a brother in arms. Somewhere in this hospital, Jimmy Chen was breathing. His heart was beating. He would wake up to a changed body, a difficult road ahead. But he would wake up. He would video call his wife. He would see his daughter grow up. He would have a life. Tell Morrison I'll talk to him, Maria said. But first, can someone check on Chen? Make sure someone's with him when he wakes up. He'll be scared. Donovan smiled. Already done. And Doc, his wife Jessica is flying in from California. She'll be here tomorrow. You saved Emma's father. That family owes you everything. Maria thought about the ultrasound photo lying in the Afghan dirt, left behind in the chaos. About a little girl who would grow up with her daddy's love instead of just his memory. About the promise she'd made to her father in a garage 11 years ago. A promise she'd finally, impossibly kept. I just did my job, she whispered. But they both knew it was so much more than that. 6 months later, Maria stood at attention in the California sunshine at Camp Pendleton. The dress blues felt strange after so long in combat fatigues. Her right shoulder still ached when the weather changed, a permanent reminder of that day in the Afghan marketplace. The doctors said the nerve damage would improve with time, but she'd never have full strength back. A small price to pay. The parade ground was packed with Marines, families, and media. Cameras flashed as the commandant of the Marine Corps stepped forward, holding a small blue box. Inside was the Silver Star, the nation's third highest military decoration for valor in combat. Maria had learned she was receiving it 2 weeks ago. She still didn't feel like she deserved it. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, the commandant's voice rang out across the parade ground, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action against the enemy. While under heavy enemy fire, with complete disregard for her own safety, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez crossed 30 yards of open terrain to reach a critically wounded Marine. Despite direct orders to remain in position, she chose to risk her life rather than allow a fellow warrior to die alone. Maria's eyes drifted to the crowd. There in the front row sat Lance Corporal Jimmy Chen, or rather what was left of him. His left leg ended at the knee, a prosthetic visible beneath his dress blue trousers. His left arm ended at the elbow. They tried to save more of it, but infection had forced further amputation. He sat in a wheelchair, not quite strong enough yet for the prosthetic leg they were fitting him with. But he was alive, and beside him sat his wife Jessica, tears streaming down her face. In Jessica's arms was 2-year-old Emma, wearing a tiny pink dress and clutching a stuffed teddy bear. Her actions under fire resulted in the saving of a Marine's life, the commandant continued. Her courage, medical skill, and unwavering commitment to the Corps' most sacred principle, never leave a Marine behind, represent the highest traditions of military service. The medal was pinned to Maria's chest. She saluted. The crowd erupted in applause, but all Maria could see was Emma's face, those enormous dark eyes that looked so much like her father's, watching the ceremony with a child's innocent curiosity. After the ceremony, after the photos and congratulations and handshakes from officers she'd never met, Maria finally made her way to the Chen family. Jimmy was struggling to stand, trying to balance on his prosthetic with Jessica's help. Maria wanted to tell him to stay seated, but she understood. This was important to him. He managed to get upright, swaying slightly. Then he saluted her. The gesture was awkward with only one full arm, but it was perfect. "Thank you," Jimmy said, his voice rough. "Thank you for my life, Doc." Maria returned the salute, then stepped forward and hugged him carefully, mindful of his injuries. "Thank you for fighting so hard to stay alive. You scared the hell out of me." Jessica was sobbing openly now. "How do we ever thank you? How do we ever repay?" "You don't," Maria said gently. "You just live, you raise Emma, you be happy. That's all the thanks I need." Emma was staring at Maria with those huge eyes. Jessica lowered her to the ground. The toddler took 2 wobbling steps forward, then held up a piece of paper. "For you," she said in that precious 2-year-old voice. Maria knelt down carefully, her shoulder protesting, and took the paper. It was a crayon drawing, the kind only a toddler could create. 3 stick figures barely recognizable as human. One lying down, one bending over it, and one standing nearby. Above them, a rough circle with lines radiating out, a child's interpretation of a helicopter. "That's Daddy," Emma pointed at the lying figure. "That's you," pointing at the one bent over. "You saved Daddy." Maria's vision blurred with tears. She pulled Emma into a gentle hug. "Your daddy saved himself by being so strong," she whispered, "and your mommy saved him by giving him something to fight for." That evening, Maria sat with her own father on a bench overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Carlos Rodriguez had flown in from San Antonio for the ceremony. He looked better than she'd seen him in years, 3 years sober now, his eyes clearer, his hands steady. The demons hadn't completely left him, but he'd made peace with them. "I'm proud of you, Mija," he said quietly. "You did what I couldn't." "You would have done the same thing, Dad. You just had different orders, different circumstances." "Maybe," he stared out at the waves, "but you kept the promise, you never left him behind." Maria nodded. The weight of that promise had seemed crushing for so long. Now it felt different, not lighter exactly, but more bearable. Shared with Chen, with Emma, with all the Marines who'd risked their lives laying down covering fire while she ran into hell. "The nightmares haven't stopped," she admitted. "Sometimes I still see him lying there. Sometimes in my dreams I don't reach him in time. I watch him die over and over." Carlos put his arm around her shoulders, carefully, mindful of her injury. "I know, it doesn't go away completely, but now you have something else in your dreams too. You have Emma. You have Jimmy standing at your medal ceremony. You have the life you saved instead of the ones you couldn't." Maria thought about that. He was right. The nightmares still came. The faces of Anderson, Hughes, Perez, and Young still haunted her quiet moments. PTSD wasn't something you defeated. It was something you learned to carry. But now, when the darkness came, she could think about Emma's drawing, about Chen video calling her last week to show her Emma taking her first steps on his prosthetic leg, both of them learning to walk again together. "What will you do now?" Carlos asked. "Your enlistment's up soon." Maria had thought about that a lot. The Corps wanted her to stay, had offered her a training position at Camp Pendleton where she could teach the next generation of corpsmen. No more deployments, no more combat, a safe, honorable way to serve. But she'd also been offered something else, a position speaking to young corpsmen about the realities of combat medicine, about the weight of the oath they take, about what it means to run into fire for your Marines. "I think I want to teach," she said. "Help prepare them for what's coming. Make sure they know that sometimes the book answer isn't the right answer, that sometimes you have to trust your gut and be willing to face the consequences. Even if it means court-martial." Maria smiled. Morrison dropped the charges, said what I did was technically insubordination but substantially heroic. I think that's the kindest way anyone's ever called me stubborn. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Maria's phone buzzed, a text message from Jessica Chen. It was a photo of Emma in her crib, already asleep despite the early hour, still clutching the teddy bear. The message read, "She insisted on telling Daddy's picture goodnight. She said Daddy's friend Doc made him come home. Thank you will never be enough, but thank you." Maria showed the photo to her father. He studied it for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "That's why we do it," he said. "That's why we put on the uniform, why we run toward the danger, for moments like this, for little girls who get to know their fathers." "I wish you'd had someone to run for you," Maria said quietly. "Someone who'd ignored the orders and come for Morrison." "I do too, but maybe that's why you did what you did. Maybe all those years of watching me carry that weight taught you what really matters when the bullets are flying." He squeezed her hand. "You broke the cycle, Mija. You made a different choice." As the sun finally touched the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Maria thought about choices. About the 30 yards she'd run, the orders she'd disobeyed, the life she'd saved. About Emma growing up with a father who'd teach her to ride a bike, walk her down the aisle someday, hold her own children. About all the moments that existed now because Maria Rodriguez had refused to accept that anyone was already gone. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Jessica. "Emma wants to know if you can come to her birthday party next month. She wants to show you how she can count to 10. Please say yes." Maria typed back immediately, "I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world." She looked at the silver star on her uniform, felt the ache in her shoulder, thought about the nightmares that would probably never fully stop. War took pieces of everyone it touched, but sometimes, if you were lucky and brave and stubborn enough, you could give something back. Sometimes you could save a life. Sometimes you could keep a promise. Sometimes you could prove that 30 yards of open ground was just distance, not destiny. And sometimes, a little girl in a pink dress with her father's eyes would hand you a crayon drawing, and suddenly every terrifying step, every bullet that missed, every moment of doubt would become worth it. Maria Rodriguez had run into hell and brought a Marine home. She'd carry the scars forever, but she'd also carry Emma's drawing, Jimmy's gratitude, and the certain knowledge that when it mattered most, she'd made the right choice. Some promises she'd learned were worth everything. The end.